The New York Knicks waited 53 years for this moment. 53 years of frustration, 53 years of heartbreak, 53 years of Madison Square Garden dreaming about another championship night. And then, finally, it happened. The Knicks became NBA champions again. New York exploded. The city went crazy. Fans filled the streets. Madison Square Garden felt like the center of the basketball universe. After more than half a century, the Knicks were back on top. But hidden inside this historic NBA title, there was also a piece of Italy. Not on the court, not in the spotlight, not holding the Finals MVP trophy, but behind the bench, inside the staff, inside the work that most fans never see. His name is Riccardo Fois, an Italian coach from Olbia, Sardinia. And with the Knicks' historic title, he became part of a very small and special group. Marco Belinelli won an NBA championship as a player with the San Antonio Spurs in 2014. Sergio Scariolo won one as an assistant coach with the Toronto Raptors in 2019. And now Riccardo Fois has joined them, the third Italian to reach the top of the NBA. This is not just a Knicks story. This is not just a New York story. This is also an Italian basketball story. A story that goes from Olbia to Madison Square Garden, from Sardinia to the biggest basketball stage in America, from Italian gyms to the NBA Finals. Because sometimes history is not only written by the stars you see, sometimes it is built by the minds working behind them. New York waited 53 years. To understand why this matters, you have to understand the Knicks. The New York Knicks are not just another NBA team. They are history. They are pressure. They are noise. They are Madison Square Garden. They are Spike Lee courtside. They are celebrities in the first row. They are generations of fans waiting, hoping, suffering. The Knicks had not won an NBA championship since 1973. Think about that. Since 1973, before smartphones, before social media, before the modern NBA became global, before Michael Jordan, before Kobe Bryant, before LeBron James, before Stephen Curry, New York waited through decades of almosts, failures, rebuilds, jokes, pain and disappointment. And for a city like New York, that kind of waiting becomes part of the identity. Knicks fans do not just watch basketball. They survive basketball. They argue about it. They suffer through it. They believe again when they probably should not. So when the Knicks finally won the title, it was not just a sports victory. It was emotional release. It was a city breathing out after 53 years. And inside that moment, among the players, coaches, staff members and invisible workers who built the season, there was an Italian, Riccardo Fois. Not the loudest name, not the face on the billboard, but part of the machine that finally brought the Knicks back to the top. And for Italian basketball, that matters a lot. Who is Riccardo Fois? Riccardo Fois is not the kind of basketball figure casual fans usually talk about. He was not an NBA superstar. He was not a lottery pick. He was not the player scoring 40 points in the finals. His story is different. And maybe that makes it even more interesting. Fois was born in Olbia, in Sardinia, an island far away from the bright lights of Madison Square Garden, far away from the NBA Finals, far away from the American basketball machine. But his path moved across continents. He played basketball. He studied the game. He entered American college basketball. He worked in player development. He learned analytics. He built experience in important programs and organizations. Gonzaga, Phoenix, Arizona, Sacramento, the Italian national team, and eventually the New York Knicks. That is not a glamorous path. It is not a shortcut. It is not the story of overnight fame. It is the story of work, details, video sessions, training sessions, scouting, preparation, relationships, hours in gyms, when nobody is watching. That is the world of assistant coaches. They are not always famous, but they are essential. They help players improve. They prepare matchups. They study opponents. They connect the head coach to the locker room. They notice small things that can decide big games. And in today's NBA, those small things matter more than ever. Riccardo Fois is not the Italian NBA star you see on posters. He is the Italian basketball mind you find behind the bench. And now, that mind has an NBA championship ring. The Italian line of NBA champions. Before Riccardo Fois, only 2 Italians had reached this kind of NBA glory. The first was Marco Belinelli. In 2014, Belinelli won the NBA championship with the San Antonio Spurs. That Spurs team was basketball perfection, ball movement, intelligence, unselfishness, timing. One of the most beautiful teams ever to win a title. And inside that machine, there was an Italian shooter, Marco Belinelli, a player from San Giovanni in Persiceto. A man who proved that an Italian could be part of a championship rotation in the NBA. Then, in 2019, came Sergio Scariolo. He won the NBA title as an assistant coach with the Toronto Raptors. That Raptors team made history. Canada's first NBA championship. Kawhi Leonard's legendary run. A team built on defense, experience and tactical intelligence. And there, on the bench, was Scariolo, one of the great European basketball minds. A coach shaped by international basketball, European strategy, and decades of experience. Belinelli won it on the court. Scariolo won it on the bench. And now Riccardo Fois has added a new chapter. A younger Italian coach. A Sardinian basketball mind. An assistant inside one of the most emotional championships in modern NBA history. 3 Italians. 3 different paths. 1 player. 2 coaches. 3 championship rings. And a message that Italian basketball fans should not ignore. Italy may not dominate the NBA with dozens of superstars. But Italian basketball keeps finding ways to enter winning rooms. Sometimes through shooting. Sometimes through tactics. Sometimes through development. Sometimes through the invisible architecture of a championship team. Why assistant coaches matter. Many fans look at an NBA championship and see the stars. The scorer, the MVP, the superstar, the clutch shot, the celebration. And of course, stars matter. You do not win in the NBA without great players. But modern championships are not built by 5 players alone. They are built by entire ecosystems. Head coaches, assistant coaches, video coordinators, player development staff, analytics departments, medical teams, scouts, trainers. Every detail counts. Every matchup matters. Every weakness gets studied. Every habit gets tested. Every player needs a plan. Assistant coaches live in that hidden world. They help translate big ideas into daily work. They help players understand where to stand, when to cut, how to defend, how to read the floor. They prepare scouting reports. They watch film. They build trust. They help create habits long before the cameras arrive. And when a team wins a championship, those habits become history. That is why Riccardo Fois' title matters. Because it shows that Italian basketball knowledge is not only about nostalgia. It is not only about old legends. It is not only about players who made it to the NBA. It is also about minds, coaches, teachers, developers, people who understand the game deeply enough to contribute at the highest level. The NBA is the most competitive basketball league in the world. And inside that league, inside a championship staff, there was an Italian from Olbia. That is not small. That is huge. From Olbia to Madison Square Garden, there is something almost cinematic about this story. Olbia, Sardinia, Madison Square Garden, New York City, 2 worlds that seem impossibly far apart. One is an Italian coastal city on an island in the Mediterranean. The other is one of the loudest sports stages on earth. But basketball connected them. That is the magic of this story. Riccardo Fois did not arrive in New York as a celebrity. He arrived through competence, through knowledge, through years of building credibility. That is a very modern Italian migration story. Not the old story of immigrants crossing the ocean with a suitcase, but a new story. Italian professionals, Italian coaches, Italian sports minds, Italian talent moving through global systems and leaving a mark in places where the competition is brutal. From Olbia to Pepperdine, from college basketball to player development, from the Italian national team to NBA benches, from Phoenix and Sacramento to New York, and finally, from years of work to a championship ring. This is why the phrase matters. From Olbia to Madison Square Garden. It sounds almost impossible, but it happened. And it happened in one of the most emotional NBA seasons New York has ever seen. The Knicks waited 53 years. And when the moment finally came, an Italian was there. Not as a tourist, not as a fan, but as part of the staff that built it. What this means for Italian basketball. For Italian basketball, this is bigger than one ring. Because every time an Italian reaches the top of the NBA, it changes the imagination. Belinelli showed that an Italian player could win on the court. Scariolo showed that a European coach could help build an NBA champion. Fois shows that the next generation of Italian basketball minds can enter the most advanced basketball environments in the world. That matters for young Italian coaches. For young players. For people working in gyms far from the spotlight. It says that the path exists, maybe not an easy path, maybe not a straight path, but a real one. Italian basketball has always had intelligence, technique, tactical culture, player development, a strong understanding of team play, but sometimes it does not get the global attention it deserves. This kind of story changes that. Because the NBA is not only looking for athleticism. It is looking for knowledge, preparation, communication, detail. And Italian basketball can offer that. Riccardo Fois's ring is personal, but it is also symbolic. It tells Italian basketball, you belong in these rooms. You can work at this level. You can influence the game even when nobody is chanting your name. And maybe that is the most Italian part of the story. Doing the work, building the structure, understanding the details, and letting the masterpiece speak for itself. Italy was there too. The Knicks waited 53 years. New York celebrated like only New York can. The players lifted the trophy. The fans filled the streets. Madison Square Garden had its miracle back. But inside that miracle, there was also a small piece of blue, a Sardinian coach, an Italian basketball mind, a hidden part of a historic NBA title. Marco Belinelli won with the Spurs in 2014. Sergio Scariolo won with the Raptors in 2019. And now Riccardo Fois has joined them with the Knicks. The third Italian to reach the top of the NBA. The NBA is American. The Knicks are New York. But once again, Italy found a way inside the story. From Olbia to Madison Square Garden. From Sardinia to the NBA championship. From behind the bench to basketball history. Riccardo Fois may not be the face of this title. But his story deserves to be told. Because sometimes the Italian DNA of a victory is not in the box score. It is in the preparation. In the mind. In the details. In the work nobody sees. So yes, the Knicks are champions. New York won. But somewhere inside that championship, Italy won too. Now I want to know what you think. Did you know Riccardo Fois was part of the Knicks title? And who is the most important Italian figure in NBA history? Marco Belinelli, Sergio Scariolo, Danilo Gallinari, Andrea Bargnani, Riccardo Fois, or someone else? Write your answer in the comments. And subscribe for more stories about Italian roots, Italian talent, sports history, and the hidden Italian DNA inside American culture.